Hey everyone, welcome to the Robot Dinosaur project. Now this is definitely not a tutorial, it's more of like a documentary. I've never done anything like this before and I make a bunch of mistakes or just learn ways to do things differently, but I learn a lot. This video is part 1, there will be a part 2, and based on how that one ends, there probably should be a part 3, which in either case I will work on that, or I will just end up making a new robot entirely.
I've always wanted a robot dinosaur, so I thought, why don't I make one with this vacuum right here? We're gonna take this right here and turn it into what hopefully will look like this. It's an RC Triceratops. We have RC tires that I'd like to stick on it, a spoiler, hopefully put a better caster wheel on the front, get these horns to spin. That'll be an interesting process, and I do have LED lights to put in the head part right here. So let's get to work. So the first thing I would like to do is to take out the guts, because I really don't know if we'll be able to use any of this on the inside. The one thing I do want to keep though is this extension cord that winds up. I'd like to use it for some sort of like rope system. Maybe I'll put like a grappling hook at the end, or just some sort of hooky thing. So let's look inside of it.
So the first thing I did in the dismantling process
was to unscrew a bunch of the screws. I also took off anything that I could just remove without, unscrewing anything. And I took off the exhaust port and the little filter thing back there, which was absolutely disgusting. I tried prying it apart, but to no avail at this point. Also found a crayon, which I thought was pretty hilarious.
So it appears we got a bit of a problem. There are screws, not sure if you can even see it, all the way down in the depths.
So I tried for way too long to get them out with the screwdrivers I already had lying around in my shop. Either they were just too fat or they weren't going the distance.
It's like the cow wanted to come over and say hello. Hey there, Cowsy.
At this point, I decided, I'm going to get the proper size screwdriver, and that worked out great.
Yes. Sweet. Whoa. You can see we got the cord winder apart. Really cool. Comment below if you know what this is, but I think that's a fuse. Just in case something goes wrong, I think that's supposed to break.
I unscrewed the motor housing.
Dang. Okay. Whoa. So we got our motor here that had powered the vacuum. We got the cord. Whoa, that looks really cool. And the housing.
After pulling the motor out, I was able to get the bottom of the vacuum entirely free. Now, I also started to unplug some wires, but my lens protector fell over the camera, so enjoy some glowing red footage.
This is really cool. Basically, you unwind it like this, but then whenever you press this button right here, it winds itself back up again. Now might not be a bad time to go over some things that I'll be reusing from other machines. Like here we have RC car tires and the spoiler, I think from the same car. We have this piece of lamp that I'd love to reuse. We have obviously the vacuum. The next thing I'm going to do though is probably give this a cleaning because it is filthy. Now I'd love to reuse this as well, but it's a little bit weighty. So we'll see if we can reuse it, depending on whether the motors can push that much weight.
Now, before cleaning it, I decided to try to take the tires off, but I was really having a hard time. So I decided, I'll just try taking them off later. Then it's time for some scrubbing. I used a microfiber towel and some water to get a pretty satisfying cleanup on most everything.
So here it is dry now. I more or less cleaned it up. It's in a lot better shape than what it was. Took it in the house and I did a little bit more of a thorough washing.
Now, I still really like the extension cord spool and wanted to use it, but as I mentioned earlier, the extension cord was just going to be too heavy. So I took apart the spool.
Okay, that went surprisingly well. Nothing flew anywhere.
I was worried that the coil spring would unwind and just go everywhere, which is kind of a foreshadowing issue later on. Now, the engineers that designed this did a really cool job getting the power to come through something spinning to an extension cord. As a replacement for said extension cord, I decided paracord would be a much lighter option, and come on, it just looked really cool as well.
Ta-da!
Now, getting the paracord attached to the spool was quite a process. I actually ended up tying a knot into the paracord and shoving it on these little spikes and things that were inside of the spool. And after quite a bit of pushing, pulling, shoving, redoing it, I actually got it to work, and it was pretty strong.
The one nice thing about filming this is that if you don't know what screw size came out of what hole, you can always go back and look.
Now I just had to screw everything back in place the way it was originally.
This metal tension piece slipped off. So, gotta take that out and pop that back in.
I totally forgot it was called a coil spring. I don't think I called it that the entire build. I just put it back on with a pair of pliers though, but then here's where disaster struck. This was my concern earlier. If you wind up a coil spring without anything holding it down on top, well, it can go like anywhere.
I will be learning how to put this back together if that's possible. I should be wearing gloves.
That is a wise idea, so I quickly put some gloves on, or at least one glove. And then I realized, you know what? I should probably put the other glove on. So after putting that on, I finished the wind-up process, which I was very blessed that it wasn't a lot worse. Now let's get that metal piece on that I should have had on originally before I tried winding it up.
Yes! Woohoo!
And it actually worked quite well.
Woo! Got a lot of power to it.
I tried winding up the paracord instead of just spitting it out, and that worked great too.
It looks so much cooler already with that on there. So now it's time to think about where we're going to put the guts inside of this robot. Now, for the motors and the battery and things like that, I'm going to use this RC car. Now, if you're thinking, wow, that is small, I totally agree. It is very tiny. I have no idea if it will be able to power this thing, but we'll see. We'll have to remove this piece of plastic here. It's obviously in the way.
Now it's time for a very satisfying plastic snapping montage. So I tried to attack the wheel removal problem again, and this time with much greater success. I was able to get the first wheel off. This revealed a pretty cool hidden design that was under the wheels. Now the second wheel was more challenging. It did have a piece of plastic that was in the way, so I removed it with the pliers.
Woo!
And that just left me with an empty frame to work with.
Look how cold it is today. That is frozen. I'm sure it's been like this for... I'm sure that took a couple days to freeze. That's kind of fun.
So I chopped off most of the motor housing, but I kept this piece right here.
Ah, perfect. So before I go any further, I want to test out and see if that little RC car I have has enough power to move this entire machine. So I'm going to put some weight on it, and we'll give it a try and test it out.
Here I'm just popping in the purple battery.
So welcome to my super scientific testing facility. We have duct tape, and here's the car, and we have the stone. I'm going to try putting this on top of it. Hopefully this doesn't burn the motor straight out of it. Let's try getting it to move. Now I'm in the grass, so this should be even harder for it. Ooh, I don't know. Doesn't seem like it's got the power. Remove the stone here. See how oh, it drives great without it. Let's try a smaller rock. Rock number 2. Okay. Well, okay. Well, rock number 2 seems to be just fine. But that's not super heavy. Yeah, rock number 1, though, is quite weighty. So I'm not surprised it can't push it, especially in the grass. Oh, you know what, though? It's locking its wheels up. Let's try putting it straight up now. This will probably fall right off, but let's try it. Ooh. Ooh. Oh, okay. So it can't move it. Even if it is tough for it, that's not too much weight. At least at least down the hill a little bit.
So after that test, I think I'm still gonna go with it and just give it a try. The worst thing that happens is I have to use or buy a bigger vehicle. So stand back, everybody. It's time for a little RC car surgery. Since I was only using the back wheels to power the Robot Dinosaur, I thought that maybe I could remove the gears from the front wheels, therefore making less friction and therefore making more power. But as I was looking at the gearbox inside and the way it was made, I decided that wasn't going to work out, so I just screwed the whole thing back together the way it was originally.
This is our first snow that really laid well. That's pretty cool. So to use this to power the robot, what I'm thinking is to put this wooden dowel, take off the wheels, and put this wooden dowel on as kind of an axle, and then attach that to these wheels.
So off the wheels come one by one. It looks hilarious like that. And then it was time to start brainstorming a layout on how this would fit in there. So I made some measurements to determine where the RC car would actually sit inside of the vacuum. Then I went out and found some scrap wood, which I would use to make these little legs to support the RC car up in the air so I could theoretically get the battery out and also hopefully put the axles in the right position. These little bits of plastic were in the way though, so I promptly removed them with the pliers. Then I removed some screws so I can install the legs on the bottom of the RC car. Come to think of it, I've said like RC car a million times. It kind of looks like a turkey. Like a roasted turkey, maybe I'll call it that. Anyways, I pre-drilled some holes with some screws. I don't know if I recommend doing that. It did work, and then I was able to mount the legs using those pre-drilled holes. The sun came back out. It's nice. So at this point, I started working on the axle. I cut to size a wooden dowel that my brother gave to me. So I tried using the hand drill to put a hole through it, but it broke.
Yeah, that might not work.
So then I just stood there brainstorming, trying to figure out how I was actually going to get this attached. The result of that was me resorting to duct tape. In hindsight, I see why this probably wasn't a good idea. There just wasn't enough on the RC car for the duct tape to grab onto. In an attempt to remedy the problem, I placed some screws into the stubby little axles of the RC car, hoping that it would give a little more surface area for the duct tape to actually grip onto. Now this actually worked at first, but then we had the opposite problem where now the wooden dowels weren't sticking to the duct tape, so that was really a no-go. But before doing anything else, I decided to clean up my shop and make my workspace a little bit better looking. I found this rather thick straw, and I thought that maybe using the heat gun I could expand it and fit it around both axles and turn them into one axle. So I removed my former handiwork. So I got out the heat gun, and my first attempt didn't go so well with the wooden dowel. So I retried it, and I just tried first on the axle of the RC car. It actually worked out pretty well, so then I whittled the wooden dowel so it would fit into the straw better. And then after heat gunning it and giving it a shove, it worked out. So that was super cool. I can't believe this actually worked. Then I just had to do the same thing for both sides.
Wow.
Then I marked out where I can mount the legs on the bottom, and I screwed them in.
Sweet.
It is really raining today. But fortunately, it's not very cold.
So the next step is to get these wheels off. And there's a bolt right there that needs to be removed. I don't think this is gonna work. Sweet. Oh no. I think I broke it. Or maybe not. Okay. I'm confused. What is that noise? Okay, so off camera, I just tried pulling on it, and ta-da! I've officially got wet Crocs now, or wet socks in my Crocs.
Comment down below if you wear socks and Crocs together or if you think it's hideous. At this point, I pulled out what was practically a jet engine, and I used it to screw the wheels into the axles.
So this is the moment of truth. I have no idea if this motor will be powerful enough. But let's just see. No way. Oh my word. It actually works. No way! Maybe not amazing, but it completely works. Uh-oh. Looks like the right wheel is broken there. It's spinning free. Now let's see how much weight we can stick on it and see if it can still move it. That's quite a bit of weight. Let's try it. Oh, it looks like it can't. Let's remove one thing at a time here. Let's remove this. Not well.
So I removed the wheel and replaced the axle with a new one so that it would stop spinning free. Even with this fix, there wasn't enough support near the axles, so what I did is took a piece of plastic and I measured it to size. Then I cut them out and I drilled holes into them.
So it rolls back and forth really well right now, which is awesome. I do hear a funny noise when I go backward, like a scraping sound. I don't know if that's bad or not. So let's try it out.
So out on the road, this thing moved awesome. It could go really fast, it could turn sharp, and it was pretty agile. But with weight on it, it was a completely different story. It just would not go.
Huh.
I mean, it would go a little bit if I gave it a kick, but that just wasn't enough.
So there's basically three options we can go with here. One, we could keep it the way it is and just kind of push it to get it to go around. Or number two, we add another RC car or something like that to give it more power. Or three, we make our own transmission and put in our own gearbox. So I think that's the option I'm going to go with.
So I had this box that was full of parts from a robot arm kit. I had gotten this from my great-granddaddy. It had a bunch of gears and connector parts I could bash together to create this gearbox. After a bunch of brainstorming, I found all the parts I wanted, and it was just a matter of putting it all together. So the clip of me putting this thing together actually took me 20 minutes to design and build. It's hard to believe how long some things took me to create during this project. But after a ton of trial and error, I got this thing put together, and then I was able to duplicate it on the other side and make another gearbox.
So it's actually been a little while since I've worked on the robot. I got the flu and was down for quite a while, but I'm feeling a lot better and I'm excited to get back to working on it. So to get these gearboxes on, so to install the gearboxes, I have to take off the axles and I actually have to take off the RC car itself.
So it's a little sad watching me rip apart all the work I had previously done on the wheels and the axles, but I was hoping it would be worth it with the new power upgrade. I unscrewed the car from the vacuum mainframe. Then I took out the screws that I had put in the axles earlier, which would give me room to stick in these metal rods. Now these either came from the robotic arm kit or a similar one, and they had this square shape that fit into the gears perfectly, which is really handy to transfer the RC car's power into the gears themselves. So now I could actually install the gearbox. Stuck the plastic sized piece through the axle, and then I pre-drilled and screwed it to those wooden legs. Then it was just a matter of putting it back together the way I had it previously, except this time it was actually attached to the RC car. Once it was installed, I could replicate the same process for the other side.
So I don't know what you guys think about this, but I think it looks kind of nuts. I mean, look how crazy that is. I think it looks awesome.
Now getting the battery in and out of this thing was still a problem, so I used the drill and put 1,000,000 holes on the underneath so that I could make a trapdoor that could open. I used the razor to finish cutting, and if my memory serves me correct, this took quite a while, but I finally got it to pop out after breaking a razor blade.
So I'm going to take a momentary break from building the project, and I'm going to pick up some supplies.
Now back to the trapdoor, I had actually gotten it out at this point, but now I wanted to put it back in using some hinges. Then I cut out another pair of plastic circles. I'm not really sure what to call them because they're technically standing in the place of bearings. I installed a latch on the bottom of the trapdoor. Then my brother painted the axles black so it would match the rest of the robot. I actually removed some more from the vacuum frame. This underpiece right here had to go. So now after all of that, I could finally reinstall the RC car back to where it was before. I installed the wheels, and then it was time to actually test it out.
Whew. It's definitely working. It's no speed demon, but it's pushing it.
Now it was time for the weight test.
It's doing it. Oh my word.
That's going to do it for this one. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.